There we go. That should be working. Let me know if it isn't. Okay. So a couple of announcements. I have marked assignment 1. Thank you for all of that. I'm going to show you one in particular. This one right here. Yeah. Notice how it's cycling, because that allows the child to select which one they're in the column. So I got mom ate a funny goat monkey. So mom ate a funny monkey on the chair. So mom ate a funny monkey on the chair. Play back. That is the intuitive design of this product, which I was hoping you'd catch through the video. For some of you, when you press the button, it just randomly selected one without cycling through. So that's why I kind of docked you marks. And so yeah, you have to have the empathetic view of what the child would do, and have that in mind as they are creating their own sentences, right? Because in some of your projects, if I just click on turkey, and then it would say the turkey, and then if I click it again, it would say mom, and then if I say playback, it would say the turkey mom. So keep that in mind going forward. Is the user experience, like what is the best solution out of the multiple solutions you have to offer? What is the best one? What is the most intuitive one? Does anyone want to care to guess who did this one? Does he want to be? Yeah. Oh yeah, you're right. Yeah, so it's Anthony. Good job, Anthony. All right, let's see. A question came up last week. I think it was Sihi. It was just a quick Visual Studio tip. If you have some code, let's just go to some code here. Let me just grab some. If you have some JavaScript code, remember how last time I said you could press the Alt key like this, Alt, 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 and you could have multiple cursors? Well, what if it's like all in a row? You could actually say Shift Alt and then drag the whole thing. That way you have multiple cursors on the whole, every single line from what you select. Tip that I want to share in case you needed that. Okay, because I taught you last week about the map function, and because I think the map function is so important, I'm going to make you guys do an exercise right now before you get into today's topic on the map function. So this is what I want you to do. Go to Google, and we're going to go Google Wiki boulevards in Paris. And you should see this page here. Anyone see that movie? Shoot. What's the movie where it's probably set in the World War II scene where there's a code breaker who figures out the code? Yes, him. That actor. What's that movie name? Yeah, you know the movie? Does anyone remember see that movie? There was a scene in it. What was that? Imitation Game. Yes, that's it. There was one scene in it that I liked where, in order to be qualified and join the team of elite hackers, they put you through a test. And do you remember that test was like, I don't know, like you have to connect some networks together. Anyways, so the hero finished first. This is going to be your test, right? For map. Here we go. So here's your challenge. Your challenge is open up the console and then using map.map and using .filter, I want you to output in the console a list of all the street names in this list that only have that have the word DE in the street name, de. Okay, so not all of these street names have de. Only some of them have de. So to remind ourselves, I'm going to start you off. Okay. So you're going to start off like this. You're going to say something like const streets equals. What do you think comes next? How do you grab all of those DOM elements at once? Not query selector, because that's just one. I need all of them. So what is it? Yep, document.querySelectorAll. Now here's where you have to figure out what goes next. Okay, so I'm going to give you 1 minute to figure out what goes in that query selector all argument to get all of those streets. So if you're right and you console log streets, you should see all of them. So I'll give you 1 minute for that. Raise your hand if you think you got it. Yeah, Suk, yeah, what do you got? MW category space A dash group space A like that. Let's try it out. Starting from there, where does it end here? Let's see. Okay, that works too. Good. Very good. So you got that. Let me clear the console for a second. So the next thing is, I want you to use .map on your thing. But the problem is, what's the problem? It's going to give you an error if I say map something. It'll give you map is not a function. So what is the problem? Yeah, so streets is not an array, it's a node list. What's the solution to that? It's to, and we saw it in the Kahoot, it's to, no, let me just refresh this because it's going to complain because I already declared it. So the solution to that is as you're defining streets, this in the Kahoot, just put a spread operator on there. So by putting the square brackets, you're saying, hey, this is an array. And by putting the 3 dots, it's picking off each element in the node list and putting it in the array. So if I say streets now, it should no longer say node list, and it does not. It should now say array, and it does. Okay. All right. Yes. Oh. Oh. YouTube.com/YouTube/BI8KGU5IL. I see. On my other monitor here. Yeah, it looks like it. Yes. Yes, it is. Very good. Yes, it's being recorded. Okay. All right, so our goal again is I only want street names that have DE. Okay. So what's next? You got all of these. I'll start you off. If you say streets.map, because you can now use map because it's an array. You can say something like this. I'll use the old style. I'll just say console logged. right? So this is what it produces. So what's the next step? I think the next step is trying to get the text content of this. Because if you can get the text content of this, then map will output a list of just the text content, and I don't really care about the markup. I just want the once I get the text content, it'll give me an array of all of the streets, and then I can filter that array. Yeah? So how do you do that? Instead of console log street, and let's take a look at here they're using the arrow function. Let's use the arrow function just so it's consistent with the function. Keep in mind the arrow function is just a shorthand notation of regular functions. So what goes on the right hand side here? What do you think? Give you 1 minute for that. Raise your hand. Yeah, go. Okay, you're almost right. I'm going to say this would be right. So keep in mind, what does map produce at the end? And I just went over the definition earlier in Kahoot. So what's the difference between .map and .for each? For each does not produce a array. So with map, it produces an array. Okay? If I said console log here, it'll just output to the screen, but nothing is like outputted to the array. So I want this. See, notice how it already gives me a hint here of what it's going to do. Enter. Great. So now I have an array of just the street names. So now the next step is to filter it out with just using the dot filter. Okay, so here's an example. Here's an array. You can say that array dot filter and then put in the test condition on the right hand side. What I also want you to use is this one here, which is a short, a neat way. Oh, not that one. This one here. So if you have a string, you can say that string dot includes whatever you're looking for. So put those two together in 1 minute, and let's see if you got it. I'll give you a hint. It's going to look like this. Dot filter. You want to make it nicer looking, you can just hit Shift Enter. There, I gave you a hint right there. Oh, crap. There we go. That's what it's going to kind of look like. So you just have to fill in the rest. Yeah, DE. You could have, I suppose you could have DES. That's fine. What'd you get, Suk? Oh yeah, John. Yeah. On here? Yeah, that's the new ES6 way of an arrow function. Just think of this as shorthand notation of regular functions. So here, all that really means is this. So the old way is this way. This is the old way. What do you think? Anyone? Yeah, Suk. Yes. All right. Done. Very good. All right. Let's move on to today's topic, which is functions. So if you want to go to week 5, any questions or comments so far? Remember, I have the form here if you want to ask a question. So we're going to start off with this lesson file here. So let me just download that on my desktop. Put it up. And let's extract it. Oh crap, where'd it go? I think it was, I should have made a new folder is what I should have done. 1073 week. Again. Take that into here. That, don't need this. Oops. Okay, so we'll start with functions here. Let's open that up. Let's open that up in here as well. Desktop. Okay. I'm going to open functions. Okay, so even before I'm going to start with step 1 here, I'm going to go back to what I said earlier in the week. And what did I say about functions regarding objects? I said in JavaScript, functions are actually objects. Okay, so I'm just going to take you in a little bit of a deep dive on how you should think of functions in JavaScript from the browser's point of view. Okay. So if I create a function right now, I'll call it A. All it's going to do is return 1. Okay. I said type of A. It says function, but remember what I said, functions are actually objects. Question, if I were to type in just A right now and hit enter, what do you think would be the output? Is it, what was that? What was that? If I said A right now and then hit enter, what do you think the output would be in the console? 1? It'll give the definition of the function is correct. Watch. So A, enter, there. It gives me the definition of the function. Question now, John, how do I run it? How do I run any function? Dot? No. How do I run any function? Yeah. I need the brackets, right? By putting the brackets, you're immediately calling that function. Okay, next step. That's called the function definition or function declaration, where I just say function A. What happens is when I say function A, just like before when I said to you var A equals something, it actually puts it in the window. So let's take a look at the window object for now. That huge window object. And there's my function right here, A. If I open it up, you know, has a different, that's my function right there. Okay. Okay. Next step. I'm going to create an object. Okay, maybe A is true, whatever. Did you know in objects, you can also put functions, not just primitive values. So here in this B, I can actually say something like this. So let me enter that in. Okay. Question. What do I type in order to see the function definition? John. B? No. my object.b is correct. There's my function definition. John, how do I run that function b? Yes, you're right. Give me the whole sentence there. Give me the whole expression. Yeah, just start with my obj. Yeah. 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 Parentheses. Yes. Correct. I'm hoping you'll see the connection between the first one we did, where it attached itself to the window, and this, right? Because back when I said window.a gives me the function definition. To run it, I say window.a brackets, or because if I just say a brackets, it'll look in the window anyway, because a is attached to the window. Same thing here in our object. Like think of this as window, right? And here are the different properties. It just so happens to be that b is a function. So that's what's happening in the back end. So when you think of, let's say, let's have an array equals 1, 2, 3, and then you're looking at the proto here, and remember how I said the proto, all of these are the methods or the functions that all arrays can do. So now you can kind of think, oh, okay, so that means there's some kind of object in JavaScript where on the left-hand side, it has the key called concat. On the right-hand side, it has the function definition of that. Does that make sense? Okay. So think of functions. The big idea is think of functions in JavaScript are just objects. So whenever you say in function B, what you're really doing is there's this object called window, like var window equals some object, and you're saying function A. Okay, A equals some kind of function definition. That's what you're really saying. Or another way to put it is, yeah, no, I'll just stop it there. Okay. Here's something that I want to share with you, which so right now all we've done is named functions. We've said function and some kind of name like A. In JavaScript, you can also declare a function without a name. And we've done it all the time. For example, when you're doing add event listener, right? You're saying like, whatever dot add event listener, click, and then you say here's the anonymous function that we do here. This is an anonymous function, it has no name. Now that happens to be inside this add event listener, but you can also put anonymous functions just right here, but this is how you do it, right? You can't just say function with no name, return hello. That would not make sense. It would give an error, right? That doesn't make sense. Parsing wise, it just doesn't make sense. I want you to try this on the console. I want you to write this function here, but wrap it in parentheses right now and see what happens in the console. I'm gonna write this. Press enter. What do you get? Yeah, you get the function definition. John, how do you run that function? Give me the whole line. No? Okay. Anyone else want to try? Suk. Yes? Yes. This makes sense. The big idea is whether or not you have a variable like let a equals a function definition, or whether or not you have something like this that is the function definition. To run it, you put the parentheses after it. If you don't put the parentheses after it, it just gives you the function definition. Okay? That's the big idea. So, yeah, this pattern here is called this. It is, or maybe it was, a very popular pattern in JavaScript. And here's the reason why it was so popular. The benefits of doing something like this is scoping. Whatever variables you have in here, it will not bleed out into the window global object. Whereas before, even if we said function A, what equals whatever, this A still bleeds into the window, right? You have window.a. If you don't want even to touch the window, you run an iffy like that. And so all the variables are contained in here, are encapsulated, they're closed, it can't be changed. And so this was a very popular pattern back in the day. You may see that again in some code in the future. Now it's not like that anymore, or it shouldn't be, because we now have modules. Let me see here. So let's try our step one here, and I'm just gonna really step through this because I think it's really basic. So where is my? I didn't even write anything on there. So step one, what do you say here? There are a number of functions that are included with most modern browsers. The replace function is just one of many. So just like I showed you before with array, there is something called built-in functions, which is, right? So all of these in the proto are built-in functions, okay? Some people in JavaScript land will say these are called methods. Other people will say, well, it's just a function. I prefer either one. In my mind, a function should always return something. A method doesn't have to, but in the end of the day, it's still a function in Java. What is other here? What's that? Anonymous functions, we just touched upon that. Named functions, yes. Function parameters. Some methods or functions don't require any parameters. Well, some do. I did want to talk about that. What did I had something in my notes. What did I want to say about? Oh, yeah. Okay. So in some of your assignments, or even in Scott's assignments, you'll have something like, button.onClick. Some kind of function. My preference is never to use the .onClick. However, in this intro to class, you can use either one. And here's why. Think of this .onClick as just another key value property here. So let's say here, let's say this is a button, and somewhere in here you're going to see .onClick. Let's just pretend, okay? The problem is another programmer can come behind you and have their program replace your .onClick, so that your function definition of .onClick, let's pretend this is .onClick, and here's your function definition. Some other programmer later can override that, say .onClick equals their code now. That's why I like to use add event listener. Okay? They can't do that because an add event listener, they can't override it. It'll always be there. What else do I want to say? I think this is basic, and I think you should already know this from other languages. But let me just we're just gonna make up some code, whatever. That's all I wanted to do. Whatever. In terms of the question I have now, and what I want to point out is how does the browser, where is the execution line by line here in this code, brief code? So obviously it starts here. The CPU will run this kind of thing. However, here's the big takeaway. When it sees a function declaration like this, it doesn't even care what's inside the body of that. It just remembers B equals a function definition. It just remembers B. Then it goes on to here. Then maybe later, if I call B, then it looks up its memory. Hey, is there a B? Oh, there's a B. Now let's run on the right-hand side of that object. Okay, so that's the big takeaway. Well, the stuff in here does not run unless it's called, which I think I want to make that clear. Okay, I'm going to introduce, what is this now? I'm going to introduce a new concept. Let's visit chapters.ca for a second. Go here. Okay, let's just examine the code. There. You might see a lot of web pages have this attribute in the HTML, where it begins with a data dash. Okay, so this was invented so that you as the programmer can actually create your own attributes in the HTML. Because in the past, people were just putting whatever they wanted in the HTML, and the HTML standard committee said, no, you can't do that, so we'll give you this, data dash. Which means anything on the right-hand side of the dash, that's up to you, any custom variable name. To access it in JavaScript, this is what you do. So let's grab this here. Let's create. I'm going to say h1 hello world. Okay, so here's what you would do. You say data dash, and it could be anything after the dash. It could be whatever you want. Okay, equals. We'll give it some kind of ID of 1, for example. Okay. I want to access that in JavaScript. Do that. First, let's get it. Let's give it, for example. Oh. Let's add an event listener click to it. What is happening here? This is what I want to do. I want to highlight this. Okay. So whenever you make a click event, it'll immediately pass what you clicked on. So let's take a look at the console for this. Where did I think in the desktop 5, was it there? Was it this one? So I'm going to click on this. Click. So whenever you add a click event on something, it gives you immediately an event. Let's see this object. So I'm going to expand this object. Boom. Here's everything that you could possibly know about that event. It gives you the X and Y coordinates of your mouse as it clicked on the browser. It gives you offsets pixel-wise, if more coordinates here. The one I want to highlight is this one here called target. So this target, if I said event.target, it would give you h1 tag. Within that object, if you scroll down, you're going to see this called data set. If I look at that, now I see this is me now. This is my attribute. Remember I said data dash ID? So if I said data dash whatever, I would see whatever here. Okay. So I could say event console log event.target data set .id, enter. So now if I refresh, if I click, I should see 1. There. Why is this important? Remember last week when I went on a tangent and I used this API to grab a whole bunch of JSON data that look like this in order to create HTML on the fly? So what you could do is, as you're creating the HTML on the fly, that looks like as you're creating HTML on the fly, each of the markup here could have a data dash, maybe a data dash index that refers to your index of the array that you're using to create this, which means that now you have a way so that if the user clicks this button, you have a way, are we talking about? Which element of the array are we talking about, right? Because in the background, it'll say maybe data dash index equals 2, meaning when this HTML was produced, there was the second element in the array. Well, now if they click on the button, you could say add event listener, click, and look for the data set dot index, and now you get 2 back. So now you can do something with that second element of the array, which would then change something about this. That's why. Okay. What else do I want to say? And you could use that for your lab later. Another thing I wanted to mention is this. So you could have a function like this, function 1 ABC. There's something called arguments. Arguments comes with every function. It's there in the background. You can use it if you want to. So this is how it works. However, I will say this is the old way, not really recommended anymore. So now I just created a function that takes in 3 arguments. So if I say func1, I some integer and some boolean as it. Now the problem is, and this is why it's not recommended to do this anymore, is you could change the number of parameters or arguments in the future, and maybe you don't care about B or C, you just care about A. And so right now, there is an operator that looks very familiar, looks the same. Well, this 3 dots is now called the rest operator. It looks exactly like the spread operator, but it works like this. So you could say function, so I'll say func2. If I just care about the A and I don't care about the rest, I could say dot B. This is the recommended thing now to do. So I could say console log A, console log B, and see what happens. To run it, func2, say hi, some integer, and some boolean. There. So it gives me console log A outputs to the first one, console log B outputs an array of the rest. Okay, so this is new. This is ES6 stuff. That's now the recommended way. But if you happen to see this in your future career arguments, that's what that means. It's just coming from here. So each element of the array comes from here. Right. Go back to this one here. Let's say let's say, oh, that's where that comes from. Okay, I'm going to go off on another tangent here right now. Let's say you have an array. Let's just say you have an array called just a bunch of and let's assign that to lunch array. All right, so we have an array called lunch array. Okay, two tangents. The first tangent is this. If I say console log lunch array dot join, and I think we covered this last time. If I just said join by itself, let's see what happens. It outputs that and it puts commas in between them. I say in here, I want it so that it has a space in between them. It has a space in between them, right? If I said a dash in between them, it'll be a dash in between them. Here's the second tangent. This just came out last month. At least I'm aware of it as it came out last month. If you have an array like the one we have here, and you want to output in English a proper sentence of what is in that list, right? You want it to have like spicy, comma, bean, comma, breakfast, and the word and burritos, period. If you want that, there's now a new way to do that. So you can say this, const something, put whatever you want here, equals new international list format in English. And you could say, whatever you just said, dot format, and then put in your array and watch what happens. No, in the past, you would probably, in order to create this in the past, you would probably have to loop over the array, figure out, are we on the last element? If so, put the word and then put the last, now you no longer have to do that. If you want the word or in there, you could do this. You could say const or equals new international list format. English again, but this time we're going to pass in some options. And the option we're going to pass in is the or called disjunction. Disjunction is the same thing as or. Now you could say or.format and pass in your array. Oops. Now you got the or in there. That's something new that came out last month. Okay. Anything else I wanted to mention? Okay. Let's move on to. Yeah, that's all I wanted to say for functions. So everything here we kind of. It's either easier or I took a detour. So there we go. So that's functions. Next thing I want to touch on is scope. Any questions so far? Okay, here we go. So this one here, I'm gonna say let x equals 1. Actually, I'm gonna use the old one for now. Var x equals 1. Then step 2, I'm gonna build a function. I'll call it a. I'll say x equals 2 here. Now I'm gonna run that function. And the question I have is, when I say output x, what will it give me? Okay, so as of right now, let me comment this out. So it's not even going to run this function. All I have right now is var x equals 1, and it's going to immediately run this, output x, which means it remembered this definition. Now it's going to run it, which it basically outputs the value of x on the web page. So let's run that. There, value is 1. So here's the question. I now run this function here, a, which as x equals 2, what do you think will output? Will it be 1 or will it be 2? If you're right, and you're right. So what's happening here, and I believe this is the same in Java, if I'm not mistaken, like it looks for x inside this scope here. And if it doesn't see it, then it goes one level up, which is now up here, and it changes that. Is that not the same in Java, for example? Right? So scopes is something not new for you. Now, what happens if I say this? Var. With that one difference, let's see what happens if I output it. Refresh. It's now 1. That makes sense because now this x is looking at this, and this does not touch this because of the word var. It's its own scope. Yes, same as Java, right? No big deal. Try the next one here. If I change this function to an if true. Now what do you think will happen? It will be 1 or it will be 2? See? Oh, some kind of error, I think. A is not defined. Oh, yeah. Go again. 2. What happened here? It overwrote this. Now, why did it overwrite that? I thought we had a block here. Answer, this block only counts if it has the word function in here. So if it doesn't have the word function here, it's not function scoped. Therefore, it just hoists whatever is here up here. So in the compiler, what the compiler does is it looks at this, cuts that out, puts it here, and over here it'll say x equals 2. That's what the compiler does. Another thing, let's try this. For loop, for var, while, let's see, y equals, y is less than n, y plus, and we'll just console log I. And then here I'll say var x equals some number. I don't care about the y right now. I just care about this. What do you think will output now? Let's see. Rush 17. How'd that happen? Again, this block does not have the word function in it. Therefore, this escapes out of that block, and it hoists. Oh, yeah, thanks. Okay. Now check this out. This is another reason why we use let. Oh shoot, I think I 9. No, I'll skip that. Okay. Analyze function value. Yeah. Okay. I'm gonna skip down to step 7 here. So tell me if you can do this in Java or not, because I forget. But can you do this, where you have some kind of function, main function, okay. And inside that function, you can define another function. Can you do that? In JavaScript, or sorry, in Java, can you do that? Remind me, I don't know. No. Okay, in JavaScript you can. So this is where it gets hairy, and I'm going to show you this in the console here for a second. So what I'm going to show you is more of an advanced topic called closures. But this is one of the most powerful concepts in JavaScript ever. Here's how it works. So I'm going to make a function. Matter. Inside that function, I'm going to return another function. And this function will return x plus y. Now, think of what I said earlier about how function definitions are on the right-hand side of the object. Left-hand side of the object is the name. So if I assign some kind of var add 5 equals, here's the name. What's happening here? I'm not going to press enter yet. I will press enter. But so what just happened? What's inside here before I show you what's inside here? What is inside here? it is this, correct? Let's test if you're right. How to test? Add 5. Gone. How do I run this function add 5? If I want to say add 5 something. Okay, you know what? This var, I'll just call it generator, equals add 5. Let's put in 10 there. I want to say general. I'll just say add 5, 10. I now say, so again, add 5 is that, but I guess the big idea here is that it remembers the 5 here that you had before. Okay, and so that when you say add 5, 10, or it remembers this 5, even though you think it might not. And this is hard to explain for me, but this is one of the most powerful concepts in JavaScript. And I'm hoping you can see some kind of weirdness about this that you would not normally see in other languages. You get it? Yeah, this is amazing. Like, if you look at this, this is amazing. This is like, it remembers the 5. So this 5, when you initially said add 5, so this 5 goes in here. So x is 5. It then says function return 5 plus something. And then later when we say add 5, 10, now it's going to say return 5 plus 10. But the amazing thing is it remembers the 5 back here. And this concept is a popular interview question when they ask you what is closures. It's so the basic answer, a closure is when you have a function that returns a function that remembers the scope of the variable that came in. So here's the variable that came in, x. It remembers that inside the inner function. It returns that inner function, which you can then use later. Okay. That's the tangent too. What time is it? 2:07. Oh my goodness. Okay. Anything else I wanted to say about scopes here? No, that was it. All of you know how to do scopes. Let me see. Is there anything else here? Yes, there is something else. So remember this, set timeout. Let's begin with that, set timeout. Set timeout is a cool function because it allows you to run something, right, like console log hi, after so many milliseconds. So as soon as I press enter, it'll count to 2 seconds and then do whatever I said inside the function. Enter. Oh, what happened there? Timeout function. Oh, my bad. I think it's like this. Oh, there. Yeah. It came out after. Let me make that more obvious. Maybe make it 4,000. Enter. 2, 3, 4. Boom. There. This should be kind of weird. Well, because in other programming languages, like PHP, for example, PHP is synchronous, JavaScript is asynchronous. And here's my big idea, my analogy. I came up with this perfect analogy. Hope you like it. And it's listed here. By the way, last week when I did the fetch, remember that I did the fetch command on some kind of URL to get the JSON? Fetch is like that too. Let's pretend this is Tim Hortons. There's two ways to order food at Tim Hortons: drive-through or at the cashier. Question: is drive-through synchronous or asynchronous? Synchronous, yes, because the only way you can get your order is if the people in front of you get theirs first. Question: if you were to order something at Tim Hortons right now, and there are some people in front of you, is it possible that they can get their order after you get your order? Like if you ordered a panini and no, now I'm talking about the cashier. Forget the drive-through. Forget the drive-through. So let's say pretend at the desk here at Georgian, let's say you ordered a panini. The person after you ordered a coffee. Is it possible for them to get their order first before you? Yes. So is that synchronous or asynchronous? Asynchronous. Okay. JavaScript is asynchronous. And when you see set timeout, when you see fetch, that's what's happening. This is what's happening. So think of this panini as like a set timeout, or think of this panini as like a fetch. It takes a long time. So what's happening in the browser, first of all, who remembers the name of the browser in Chrome that runs core JavaScript? V8. So this is your V8, the desk. So this is the cashier's desk. So let's say this is customer number 1, customer number 2, customer number 3 here. So customer number 1 comes at the desk, orders a coffee, which is very quick. Okay. So the rule is if it's quick, then the cashier can take it and deliver right away. But if it's long, if it takes a long time then the cashier will delegate to the kitchen. Okay, so the kitchen. I'll reveal the true names in a second. Hold on, shoot, where did it go now? There it is. So the desk rule is this: the worker at the desk can only do fast tasks. So fast tasks are making coffee or tea. Slow tasks are making sandwiches. If the worker at the desk receives a slow task, delegate it to the kitchen. Once an order is done, call out whatever's in the quotes and give the food. Okay, so here is a fast one. It's fast, so the cashier takes care of it. It calls out W, and that's what logs on the console here. Okay. The next order, customer number 2, this takes a long time. So here's the kitchen rules. The kitchen rules is this: when an order is received from the desk, take time to make it right. However, once it's done, place the order on this conveyor belt, which now departs from my analogy of Tim Hortons. So this conveyor belt, imagine this conveyor belt has all these orders and it's moving slowly towards here. Its ultimate destination is to come back here. And the only way it can move is if this turnstile kind of rotates as it sees. If this turnstile only moves stuff from here to here, if this is empty. If there's nothing happening here, then it moves stuff from here to here. Okay, so let's pretend this is now empty. There's no customers. Then this turnstile looks in here and says, oh, okay, let me put this here. Now I can call Albert. So now Albert is here. Okay, but because this takes a long time, customer number 3 actually gets their order first before this. Okay, so that's what's happening here, is that this goes to here, travels along, this looks at here, okay, now I can move it to here, then this goes here. That's what's happening in JavaScript. And I gave a quick think in my pre-class to-do of the event loop. So I'm going to play a few minutes of this, and then we'll take a break. But this is another very important interview question. Well, they'll ask you, what is the event loop? And I'm hoping you'll take away something from this.
Code like this on your left. We've got a few functions: a function multiply, which multiplies 2 numbers; square, which calls multiply with twice; a function which prints the square of it. So things which are slow and on that stack are what we are running code in browsers. So let's.
I'll just stop here.
What can I do? Here we go. Okay. I've browsers don't give us, well, they do actually give us synchronous AJAX requests, but I'm actually just faking this out with a big while loop, because while loops are synchronous. So basically while loop for like a second or 5 seconds, I think, before continuing. So if I open up the console here, we can see what happens. So we request foo.com, and like, while this is happening, I can't do anything, right? Like even the run button hasn't finished re-rendering the fact that I previously clicked it, because the browser is blocked. It's stuck. It can't do anything until those requests complete, and then all hell breaks loose, right? Because I did some stuff, and it figured out that I'd done it. It just couldn't actually like render it, couldn't do anything. And that's because if that call stack has things on it, and here it's got these, we've got these synchronous requests, right? We've blocked the call stack. The browser can't do anything else. It can't render. It can't run any other code. It's stuck. Not ideal, right? If we want people to have nice fluid UIs, we can't block the stack. So how do we handle this? Well, the simplest solution we're provided with is asynchronous callbacks, right? So there are almost no blocking functions in the browser. Equally in Node, they're all made asynchronous, which basically means we run some code, give it a callback, and we run that later, right? We know what, if you've been writing JavaScript, you've seen asynchronous callbacks. What does this actually look like? So, simple example to remind people just where we're at. Code like this, console.log hi, right? We run a set timeout, but that queues the console.log for the future somehow. So then we skip straight on to JS-conf.vu, log that, and then 5 seconds later, we log there, right? Make sense? Happy? Basically, like that set timeout is doing something. So asynchronous callbacks with regards to the stack we saw before, how does this work? So let's run the code. Console.log hi, set timeout. Okay, what's going to happen here? We know that console.log there doesn't run immediately. It's going to run in 5 seconds time. We can't push that console.log onto the stack. So somehow it just disappears. We don't have like a way of describing this yet, but we'll come to it. We log JS-conf.vu, clear, and then 5 seconds later, somehow magically console.log there appears on the stack. How does that happen? And this is basically where the event loop comes in, and concurrency, right? So I've been kind of partially lying to you and telling you that JavaScript can only do one thing at a time. That is true. JavaScript, the runtime, can only do one thing at a time. It can't make an AJAX request while you're doing other code. It can't do a set timeout while you're doing other code. The reason we can do things concurrently is that the browser is more than just the runtime. So remember this diagram. The JavaScript runtime can do one thing at a time, but the browser gives us these other things, right? It gives us these web APIs. These are effectively threads that you can't access like threads. You can just like make calls to. And those pieces of the browser are where this concurrency kicks in. If you're a backend person, this diagram looks basically identical for Node, except instead of web APIs, we have C++ APIs, right? And the threading and all that stuff is hidden from you by being run in like C++. Okay, so now that we have this picture, let's see how this code.
Let me pause right here. So this is the desk. Here's the kitchen. Here's the conveyor belt, and here's that turnstile.
Kind of more full picture of what a browser looks like. So, same as before. On the code, console.log hi to console. Simple. Now we can see what happens when we call set timeout. So when we call set timeout, we pass this callback function and a delay to the set timeout call. Now set timeout is an API provided to us by the browser. Remember I said it doesn't live like in the V8 source. It's like extra stuff we get in the environment we're running the JavaScript runtime in. So effectively we kick off the timer, right? And like the browser kicks off the timer for you. And now it's going to handle the countdown for you, right? So that means that our set timeout call itself is not complete, so we can pull off the stack. JS-conf.vu, clear. So now we've got this timer in the web API, which 5 seconds later is going to complete. Now the web API can't just like start modifying your code, right? It can't just like chuck stuff onto the stack when it's ready, because if it did, it would like just appear randomly in the middle of your code. So this is where the task queue or the callback queue kicks in. So basically, any of the web APIs, when they're done, they push your callback onto the task queue. And finally, we get to the event loop. The title of the talk is what the heck is the event loop? The event loop is like the simplest little piece in this whole equation, and it has one very simple job. The event loop's job is to look at the stack and look at the task queue. If the stack is empty, it takes the first thing on the queue and pushes it onto the stack, which effectively runs it, right? So here we can see that now the stack is clear. There's a callback on the task queue, so the event loop runs. It says, oh, I get to do something here. Pushes the callback back onto the stack. Now remember, the stack is like JavaScript land, right? This is back inside V8. So the callback appears on the stack and gets run, comes up look there, and we're done. Does that make sense?
Does that make sense?
Everyone with me?
If you have a chance to watch the whole video, it's epic. I highly recommend it. He actually programs his own JavaScript runtime in runtime, which is mind-blowing. Anyways, so that's that for functions. So we'll take a 20-minute break, then we'll move on to lab. And if you have any questions or comments, come see me during the break. All right, break time. Yeah, okay.
This is my assignment 1.
Yes.
And I wrote your notes, but I didn't understand what I was supposed to do with that. Should I get rid of this?
So
I don't understand how to use it.
So sort of like, let's see here. Let's pull up. So this button is supposed to be this button. So when the child chooses their words, so they keep on pressing this button to select the word. So if they want dad, they have to press it 1, 2, 3 times, 1, 2, 3 times. If they want 8, they have to select this 2 times, 1, 2. So once you select it, once the child selects all the words, then this concatenates all the words.
I thought it's going to be random.
No.
Alright. Yeah,
No.
it makes sense.
Yeah. Okay. Hi. Hi. What's your name again?
Yeah.
Ramnik? No. Wait. What's your name? Sorry.
It's Gagan.
Which one?
Gagan.
Oh, Gagandeep. Yes.
Yeah. Actually, I have a question regarding with my assignment.
Yes.
And regarding with my exercises. I had done this, but I don't know how to upload. So can you able to manage me? Because last week
This one you don't have to upload. You just have to do like you did this right. This is correct. If I see a check mark, you did it right.
Yeah.
So there's nothing to upload. Is that what you mean?
Yeah. Actually, you gave me 0 marks that your code is not.
Yeah, that's not talking about this. That's talking about this.
So can you able to mark me like?
Yeah, I'll pull it up.
I got 0 marks in this.
Yes, let me
Because
see.
I don't know how to upload, but I talked with my friend and he let me know that how to submit the quiz.
Okay, so this one is referring not to your assignment, but it's referring to this one. Okay, comes here. We'll sort this out.
I also want to talk about my assignment.
Oh, okay, so we'll do that later. So what was
I had done 2 exercises.
the problem with this one?
Week 4 and week 3rd and 4th week. Yeah, 3rd and 4th week.
I forget now. Okay, I can do after class. Okay, what did I say? Remind me. Okay, so the URL is what I need, right? Is that what I?
Yeah. Now I able to know from my friend how to get URL.
Okay, so it's like this. And then show me my public portfolio. Now, before I click on that, make this public, profile, make my portfolio public, and I think, my timeline. Timeline has to be public. I think it was this one. Maybe it's this one. I know there was 3, but I forget. Okay, I think that's it. So now if I click on this, I should see, yes, there, good. So now you email me this URL because then I can see it here. Learn.free. I couldn't see that before, I don't think, right? So this is good. So this tells me what you've done for this one.
So now I'm able to get marks for me.
Now you can, yes. So let me email me to remind myself to I'll remark you.
And I have also a question about my assignment too.
Yeah. Let's take assignment number 2 is a different story. Let's check.
Yeah, actually, I upload when I got this link. I checked my link. It's working, but I don't know what happened today. I know my buttons are not working, but my assignment is working. You can check my assignment. I can give you the another link again by uploading on FileZilla.
Yeah. So you can. Here's. Like I expect a higher standard from you at 3rd semester. I expect whatever you submit me to work. It's like, think of me like as a client who's paying you for your services. If you give me stuff that doesn't work, I'm not going to pay you. Okay, now, if you give me another link, then maybe I can look at it. Maybe I'm not saying yes. I'm just saying maybe I can look at it again and maybe give you part marks. Maybe I'm not promising anything. So you can try that and see what happens.
So if I give you another link, then I have to mail you.
Then you have to email me or submit in Blackboard again. I think you can submit in Blackboard again.
Okay.
If you can't, then email me. Okay. But I'm not making any promises because I want this 0 to hurt in order for you to learn next time. The best lessons in life are when you hurt. Yeah, I have failed many times, but it's through my failures that I learned. Okay, so if I give you marks now, you're not going to learn. So I have to, it's only 10%. It's not a big deal.
Very big deal.
Okay. What's your name again?
Sonia.
Sonia. Okay. So at least yours did something. Like yours. You're not the only one who got that kind of mark. Let's see here, Sonia. Let's see where you are, Sonia. So none of the buttons are working. The only thing that works is this. Yeah. Yes, that's the only one. But the problem is, every time I press that button, it's the same thing. So it kind of defeats the purpose of this. So for example, you're supposed to make it so that if you press the button, it changes word to word. So it may start off with here. So maybe this one starts here, this one starts here, this one starts here, this one starts here, this one starts here. And then every time the child presses the button, purple means this row. So press, that means this goes to here. Or press again, this goes here. So now the child is forming a sentence for
Okay.
dad sat on a scary fish in my spaghetti. So when the child selects the word, then press play, which is what yours is. This tell the story is supposed to concatenate all the words that were selected. That's the problem. Okay, so that's why you have that mark on, because it didn't do what the assignment asked you to do. Yeah. Yeah, at least it's more marks than the other one. Okay. Okay, yeah. You just have to, if you have questions before you submit it, you ask me the functionality of something. And you can ask me, am I on the right track? Here's my project so far. Am I on the right track? You can ask me that. Okay? Okay. Yeah, so we've just 5-10 minutes. I'm still debating in my mind how it's going to work out, whether or not you physically come here to present your topic, or maybe a YouTube, or maybe some documentation on GitHub. I don't know. You tell me what.
You're going to present something in just.
Yes. No. No, you don't like that.
Why? Why? No, why? You're presenting better than us. Why?
Well, see, this is where I could change it. So maybe instead of a presentation, maybe it could be just like a written assignment. Is that better?
An assignment?
Yeah. You think? Is that better? Instead of a presentation. Or it could be a choice or something. I don't know. Yeah, I'm still debating in my mind. Okay. All right, back into it. So just to close off the last YouTube video and just to reinforce what we just learned. So remember last week where I went to this website called Get Random User and I used this fetch command. Let me just refresh this. So last week I fetched this URL. Again, just as a reminder, if I just go to URL, this URL in another tab, it gives me JSON data. There it is. So in JavaScript, I can fetch that in background, which is called the GET request, and I can now do something with it. So I'm going to run this code. You tell me why it's not working. And this should tie into the video that you just watched. Here we go. So right now, I start off with an empty array. My intention is to fill this empty array with the data that I'm getting. And that's why I'm saying console log data here. Actually, I want to console log people here is what I want. Okay. I think it'll generate an error. Let's see. Enter. It didn't generate an error, but it's empty. So the question is, why is it empty? I'll give you a hint. If I console log people again, it should be full. So why is it empty here, but now it's full here? Okay, so the YouTube, think of fetch as a panini. It takes time to make it right. Think of console log as that third customer. It's fast. So the line of execute, the order of execution is this. Here's the first line. Okay, JavaScript, yes, it's very fast. Done. Customer number 1 served. This is going to take a long time. Let's delegate it to the web APIs, which is the kitchen. It's going to take a long time. Okay, while that's happening, let's go to customer number 3, console log people. That's why it gives me an empty array, because people is still empty. The sandwich has not been made yet. It's still fetching. Network request takes forever in terms of computing cycles. Then once the data is ready, then it gives it to me back. And that's why it's populated here when I console log again, because that time is already finished. The panini has been made. Does that make sense? And this will trip you up. And when you're coding for assignment number 3, this will trip you up. If you don't remember the order of execution, and if you don't remember what is long and short and quick and fast, this can trip you up. Yeah. Yeah, actually. After a while? Yes, you're right. Yeah. So if I okay, well that's a good question. So you understand the concept. What if I just had this multiple times? One of these should eventually, after a few milliseconds, should work, you think? Now the question is, how fast is the computing cycle? Okay. Nope. It's very fast. So Tim Hortons cashier is very fast, whereas the fetch command takes forever in terms of computing cycles, in terms of wait time. Okay? Where can you get the, what's that last word? Results. Where can you get the results? Oh yeah, to fix it, this is what you would do. Well, it's already there. If you want to console log people, then put it here. So this. Oh crap! Oh. Make this into a block. So this, by putting the brackets there, I can now put multiple lines. It is. And now if I say console log, oh, here, that'll work. What was that? Whenever you see a fetch, that takes time. That will take time. So this fetch has to travel all across the globe in order to get your data. So that takes time. As compared to serving customer number 1, customer number 3, that takes very fast. Customer number 2 takes forever because it has to travel across the globe to get your data. Yes. Yes, you're right. If you put the console log inside the fetch, yes, you're right. It takes time to fetch the data because it has to. Oh, now because this depends on people being finished over here. So once this is finished, then this will give the right result. Whereas if this was outside, what was that? Yeah. Yes. Yes, it's still going to take time. This will still take time, but in terms of the output that you expect, this will have the correct output that you expect because it's right after this line. Whereas, yeah, it doesn't take any less time. It's just that the expected output is what you would expect because it's right after that. It's inside the fetch, right, rather than outside the fetch. Yeah. Okay. Enough about that. Let's go on to. I had a question. The question is from the forums. How is the function overriding x equals 2 over the global variable 1? Okay, so let's look at that for a second. So remember this. We have x bar x equals 1, we had a function which x equals 2. So this person who asked the question is not understanding how is it possible that this x can affect this. The answer is because this x looks inside this scope and says, okay, there is no such thing here as var x. I can't find that. So therefore, I'm going to look up one level of scope, which happens to be this. So therefore, x is 2. So let me show you what, and this ties into something I wanted to show you anyway. Here's how to debug properly in JavaScript. Type in the word debugger with a semicolon, and you refresh it in the browser. Well, am I doing the right thing here? Scope HTML, debugger. Did I save it? I think I saved it. Should have. Oh, yeah. Yeah, I ran it. Okay. So there, it's running. As soon as it hits debugger, it pauses. And Chrome has a nice debugger panel. Same with VS Code. You can actually tie in VS Code with this stuff. So you can actually debug in VS Code. You don't have to debug in here. But same difference. I mean, here's the big idea. How is X being changed? So as soon as I enter this function A, it creates it remembers the outer scope in global. So if I open the global, here's everything in the global. And because I said var x, remember var x basically means window.x. So that means here in the global is window. Therefore, x should be here, x is 1. Now, I'm going to watch that. Let's watch that. So up here under watch, we can actually say plus and then put in a variable like x to watch it. I already did that here. That's why x is 1 here. So now I'm going to step through this function and see what happens. So I'm going to click on this step over. No, I'm going to click on this one here. No, wait, I forgot now. Click there. Did you see what happened? X equals 2 as soon as it hit that line, right? Because this x is part of the global, which it then looks outside this because it couldn't find x inside the scope, so it looked outside the scope. So basically, the point of the story is anything inside this scope, this function scope, has access to its outer scope. That's the point. I think it's the same in Java. So, okay, so that answers that question. On to the lab. So this is where you come in. This will be your. We'll do this together, and you get to submit this. And so go. Let's open up the PDF and see what you have to do for today. So you're going to have a web page. It'll have 3 different sliders, one for red, one for green, one for blue. And every time you slide the slider, it will change the background color of the web page. Okay, so let's take a look at what that looks like. Let's download this HTML file, save it somewhere on my desktop. Week 5. Sure. This is what the web page currently looks like. It's not functional, so it's up to you to code it. So this is where you come in. I'm going to give you a chance to do this in groups or by yourself if you like, and give you time. And we'll do this for the next hour. So let's open up lab 5. Okay. So this is what Scott has given you already. He's given you access to the entire HTML markup. He's given you, interesting. He used get elements by tag name. This is the old way. Before we had query selector, we had like stuff like this, which kind of didn't give a node list, but it kind of did give a node list. It's called HTML collection, whatever, kind of like a node list. And then he gives you an RGB array. So what your job is to do is every time you slide one of these sliders, it has to change one of these values, the appropriate value. And then eventually this will be turned into CSS, and that CSS will be applied to the background color down here. Okay? Now, as I was looking over this code, he says a bunch of stuff here, and I'm going to give you the opportunity to do whatever you want here. Because he says, for example, what does he say here? Where's that? Yeah, he says here in step 7, create a while loop. But remember last class, I taught you other kinds of loops. So I'm going to give you a chance to do whatever you want to make this happen. Okay, and so I'm going to give you lots of time, and maybe near the end of the class, I'll take up to see who has different kinds of loops to see if just to see how it works, and that's pretty much it. Now, I did make a change in terms of requirements. Blackboard. So I'm replacing this submitting by the end of the calendar day. I'm replacing that with the following challenge. Rewrite the function write CSS so that it only has one line of code. Because currently, if you look at Scott's video, which by the way, I put a link to his video here. So if you think I'm going too fast today, just watch his stuff and he'll go through all those exercises nice and slow. And I admit today was more advanced than necessary, but I think it's good. Because I think all of you know through Java anyway the concepts of scopes. So try that, and also for the bonus, the challenge is instead of having an array of 3 values, I want you to change it to object. Then you're going to use everything I list below, and then you'll see that if you do that, all of this line of code, which is like probably 20-30 lines, becomes like 5. So that's why I say do anything you want to make it work. Okay, so go to it. I'll give you tons of time. I'll come around, walk around, see how you're doing, talk, chit chat, and try to find like different ways to do the same thing. And then at the end, we'll take it up. Yeah? Cool? Cool. All right. Yeah, but this is useless because you didn't return it. So it's almost like you could eliminate that entirely if you're going to do it this way. Okay, you're going to do this here. Then you say return RGB. I would say that, or just say that. Inside the function. Yeah. So this on change looks at your slide, and every time you move your slide, so basically moving each slider into how this so every time you move the one slider, you move the green slider. Show hands, who's got it? Anyone who's got it? Side seat. Nice, good. Connor. All right, Connor. Anyway, show of hands, who needs more time? No? Or maybe we should just kind of take it up. Let's do a little bit of it. And Connor can lead the way. Let me see here. What is this? Oh, this is, hold on. Open folder. Hey. Just submit, one of you submit, host it and put in Blackboard your names. Hold on, how come this is like completed already? Oh no. Oh no, that's right. That's the default, right? Yeah, that's the default. Okay, Connor. Let's start with, what'd you do? Yeah. And you said arguments? Value. Yep. Yep. Okay. And then we repeat for the same. Yep. We change the RGB index, right? Okay, anything after that? Yep. Yep. Ah. Yes. Okay. I want your one line solution. I think that'll be good. More efficient, the better. I say. Yep. Mm-hmm. You want this? Yep. Oh, that's it. Yep. Yeah, you're right. So let's try it. Let's see lab 5 if that works. Let's save it. Let's open it at, is that where I saved it? I think so. There you go. Nice job. With only one line of code pretty much for that. Excellent. So here's your answer for that challenge in Blackboard where I say, give me one line of code, right? I'll leave this here if you want to copy it down. The other challenge is instead of an array, make it an object. That'll change your code a little bit and see how far you get with that. So this is for bonus. Okay, and the reason why I prefer this is because usually you're dealing with objects anyway in the real world. You'll have to know how to manipulate that. Like you're still dealing with an arrays in the real world, but it's usually arrays of objects, just like the get random user data that we got. So try that for bonus. I think that's all I had to say for today. Let me just check my notes if I want to mention any other thing. Right, 1, 2, 3 more things I want to mention today. This is just an FYI if you need this function, which you might need it in the future. So you already know what set timeout does, where after 5 seconds, for example, it'll run your code. There's another similar one called set interval. Set interval will take your code. Let's say every 3 seconds, it'll console log hi, okay? And this will keep on going forever. Enter 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, and so on. So notice how it's just going on forever. Where do you think that would come in useful? That interval in terms of, think Kahoot. If you were to make your own Kahoot. Between questions? Yeah, when there's a voting system, well, I guess, yeah. Well, let's pretend, okay, don't think Kahoot for a second. Think, has everyone heard of this one? Poll Everywhere? It's basically a bar chart, a charting library, where it can get your votes through your phone and it'll draw the graph. Let me see here. So here's an example. It'll take your votes from your phone and it'll draw the bar graph live, dynamically, on demand kind of thing, every second. So you could use something like set interval in your web page where every second it's going to fetch a JSON provider of the latest data, the latest voting results. So that's called long polling, which you may need in the future. Second thing I wanted to say is, where was the second thing? Right. The word this. The word this is very confusing in JavaScript, especially if you're coming from, like you have this in other languages like Java for sure. I know. In JavaScript, it's like that, but can be like something else, which makes it. So let's say I have a function, call it A. I say just right now, console log this. What do you think it'll give me if I run A? Was that? Yeah, okay, yeah. So if I just say A, it gives me the function. If I run the function, it's A brackets, right, John? Okay, so what if I press enter, what will it console out, do you think? Yeah, what is this? What is it going to give me? What do you think? A, no, let's try, let's see. Enter, window. So in the future, when you're coding for future JavaScript projects, not necessarily for this class, and you have a bug and you find out why is this bug happening, try console logging this, if you are in fact using this, to see what you're really working with. Because most likely you're actually not dealing with the this that you're thinking of. You're actually dealing with window, which probably has no idea what you're talking about. And so, for example, let's try this. Figure this out for a second. I said, if I said var, I'm just going to create this on the fly. My object equals A is true, B is and log this. Okay, so let's just put this in nice lines just to make it look pretty. What did I miss here? John? How do I run this function right here? What command do I put in? Give me everything. B? No. What was that? B brackets? No. My obj dot v brackets, yes. Oh, look at this. Console log in this case did not console window, it consoled the actual object. Okay. And why that's important is because in frameworks like Vue, the style of writing your code will be very much like this. And you can refer to your this to refer to itself. And oftentimes in Vue, you're going to always say this dot something. So this dot A to refer to this dot some other function to refer to another function. Okay, but this is the kind of style of modern frameworks, is to use this. The third thing I wanted to mention briefly, last thing, which was, oh yeah, yeah. Okay, this is 330. This is kind of deeper, like closures. And it's more advanced. We will come across this in week 12 or 13, I forget. So I'm just going to introduce it now, so at least you have some kind of head start. This goes back to the question of, let's say you have an array. And this goes back to this question of how does how does this get populated kind of thing? Like in normal other programming, you wouldn't expect this X to be somehow populated, magically populated. So I'm going to attempt to answer that for you now. And this has to deal with the whole concept of callback functions. Okay. All right, let's try for each. So for each, something with that. Notice how for each it iterates on my array and it does whatever I want it to do here. So the challenge I have for you, just think about this, is how would you create your own for each method inside any array? To start you off, the answer is this. You could say array.prototype. As soon as you see prototype, you think proto. Where have you seen that before? You've seen it here, proto. So what we're going to do at the end of the day is we're going to add our own function within this list, so that at the end of the day, if I do this kind of technique, or I say ARR and click the down arrow for proto, you're going to see your own method here. Call it my for each. So let's start by doing this. Array.prototype, we'll call it my for each. So by just saying that, what I'm doing is I'm declaring that whatever I said here is now going to be part of this list in a second. That's on the left-hand side. On the right-hand side, where the function definitions are, is what I'm about to type now. So for now, let's just do something really basic, which makes no sense. Right? But I just want to see if this works in terms of sticking my method in there. So let's say array, right? That's the original array I had. The question is, do I see my for each in the proto? There it is. Cool. I can make my own method on any array now. Now, let's make it function like a for each loop. So let's do that again, except this time we'll change the code here. I want the console log this just for a second. I just want to see what we're dealing with. So if I say array dot my for each, which is now accessible to me, I just want to run it. Let's see what happens. Does it give me back? It gives me back the array. It gives me back whatever is to the left of that dot. So here's the rule number one. When you're dealing with this, usually you just have to look to the left of the dot to figure out what we're dealing with. In this case, the left of the dot is this variable, which houses this array, which is why it console logs that. Okay, next step, to make a my for each, I want a console log. Let's do a for loop. Let's say let b equals some array, empty array, and we're gonna push all the elements in array into its own array. Length, right? This is the array. So here's my empty array. I want to push the new elements in my array. The question is, how do I do that? Keep in mind, I want to use whatever I say here. So this could be like, for example, a function that returns x times 2. Pretend this is x times 2. This is the function x times 2. I want to apply x times 2 to this current variable that we're dealing with, which is this. How would I say that? So here's the answer. This is the name of the function. To run any function, I say the name and I run it with the parentheses. So now, inside that would be my array of this I. This is the array. And we're looping over each element in the array. And we're then, so for example, say this is 1. This represents 1, right? This 1 here. And so now it's function on 1. Well, what is function? Well, I passed in x times 2 here. So let's just run it. Let's just run it. I say array.my for each. And inside here, I can say, similar to what we have for map or filter kind of thing, I'm giving it my own function. Maybe I'll write it the old way, make it more obvious. I expected something, and I did not get it. Why is that? Oh, that's why. Return B here. Try it again. Array.my for each. Yes, I want this one. There. Gave me a new array, and it did what I said it here. So I could have said anything there. I could have said x times 3. Now it changes it accordingly. I'm hoping this somehow gives you a sense of, oh, that's how callback functions work. It means whatever you type in here actually gets run at a later point in time in its own method. So this is the kind of thing that you see all the time with .map, with .filter, with all kinds of function. And you're asking yourself, why am I writing a function? It's because that function is then run here at a later point in time. Whoops. It's run here. Your function is run here. I don't know why that does that. Anyways, I know that's a little bit mind-boggling a little bit, but I'm hoping that by week 12 and 13 you'll get it. So that's why I'm introducing it now. And just for you to realize that whatever you type in here, whatever function you type in here will be executed at some point in time later by this function here, right? Because this function was defined up here, and it's using whatever you typed, x times 2, and applying it x times 2 on each array element. So I'm hoping that makes some kind of sense. So by the time it's week 13, it's easy peasy, even though right now it's probably a little confusing. But that's all I wanted to say for today. Any other questions or comments? No? Let me just say for Lab 5, again, just upload that anywhere you want to. I should say upload to any host you wish, submit. Okay. That is it for today. And if you found today really fast, I encourage you to watch Scott's screencast, which is basically, he'll go through each of the exercises a lot slower. But I thought you guys are Copper, Copa students. You don't need to know the basic stuff. So that's why I went a little bit advanced today. Hope you liked it. Yeah? What do you think? Too fast? Too much? Okay. Okay. What's next week? Next week should be fun. Next week will be events. That'll be fun. Next week should be off. Okay, I'll give you a preview next week. This is what I'm working on. So yeah, next week we're going to attempt to do this. Final grade will be dependent on your musical performance of that. Okay, just kidding. Yeah, so come back next week. It'll be fun. Right?
I have a question here.
Yeah.
In lab 5.